Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me introduce myself. My name is Anini Kurnia Firdaus, NPM 121060005 and 3, Class 1C from the English Department, Fakultas Pendidikan dan Sains. Here I will explain about the Elizabethan period to fulfill the mid-test introduction to English literature. Elizabethan period. Elizabethan literature refers to bodies of work produced during the reign of Queen Elizabeth I, 1558 to 1603, and is one of the most splendid ages of English literature. It is also the time of Renaissance architecture in England. During that time, the economy prospered even though it happened during a time when there was a conflict between Catholics and Protestants in England. Elizabeth could keep these problems from spreading. Theater and poetry were the dominant forms of literature during this period. Drama was at its heyday during the Elizabethan era, and English people developed a sense of appreciation to plays performance, and very quickly that the habit of attending the theater house rooted in the English culture. Next, Renaissance. The Renaissance is a period in European history marking the transition from the Middle Ages to modernity and covering the 15th and 16th centuries, characterized by an effort to revive and surpass ideas and achievements of classical antiquity. The Renaissance was a cultural movement that profoundly affected European intellectual life in the early modern period, beginning in Italy in the 14th century and spreading to the rest of Europe by the 16th century. Its influence was felt in art, architecture, philosophy, literature, music, science, technology, politics, religion, and other aspects of intellectual inquiry. What happened during the Renaissance? At first, before this movement spread, Europeans still thought that what was said by religious leaders and scriptures was true and couldn't be contradicted. But as this movement spread, they began to think rationally, humanistically, without putting religion aside. The development of the Renaissance period reached its peak when secularism, individualism, and humanism emerged in Europe. These ideas influenced European society to break away from the restraints of religious doctrine and church domination, so that they were able to produce reforms in various aspects of life. The Renaissance introduced the classical learning of Greece and Rome into England. As a result, many Latinate words entered English. As knowledge exploded, other words were invented to fill gaps in the English. The passive attitude changed with a self-looking attitude. With this Renaissance, thinkers in Europe tried to put their position and human beings who were free to make their choice. not part of a group because of that individualist attitude is also developing in this era. And early modern English is said to span roughly the years from 1500 until 1800. The language of this Elizabethan age is much more closely related to our modern English today. The Renaissance introduced the classical learning of Greece and Rome into England. As a result, many Latinate words entered English as knowledge exploded. Other words were invented to fill gaps in the English. And next, poetry. Elizabethan age was a great age of English literature. During this time, the writing of poetry was the part of education among the educated people. That is why many books of poetry by different writers appeared during this age. This period saw many poetic luminaries rise to prominence. Edmund Spenser was a famous poet who introduced the Elizabethan age properly. In 1579, he wrote the Shepherd's Calendar, a poem in 12 books, one for each month of the year. His greatest work was The Fairy Queen. Edmund Spenser was a famous poet who introduced the Elizabethan age properly. In 1579, he wrote the Shepherd's Calendar, a poem in 12 books, one for each month of the year. His greatest work was The Fairy Queen, which was planned to be written in 12 books. He could complete 6 of them. It is an allegorical work with their themes, a political theme, a moral theme, and a fairy tale. More than the story, this work is known for its magic feeling, wonderful music in verse, and the beauty of the song. It is written in Spenserian stanza of 9 lines, with the rhyme scheme A B C B C. The Elizabethan age produced many beautiful lyric. One of the finest lyricists was Sir Philip Sidney, who was a courtier, statesman, soldier, and poet. His books of sonnets, Astrophe and Stella, was printed in 1591 after his death. Another great another great poet was Sir Walter Raleigh, who was also a soldier, sailor, explorer, courtier, and a writer. Some example of best Elizabethan lyrics can be found in the plays of Shakespeare, his longer poems Venus and Adonis, and the rap of Lucrece, and rather cold and without feelings, but the occasional lyrics found in his dramas are full of feelings and passion. The famous dramatist Marlowe has also written some fine lyrics. And next, prose. During the 15th century, Latin was the medium of expression and almost all the important prose works were written in that language. With the arrival of cheap mass printing English, prose became the popular medium for works aiming both at amusement and instruction. Of the original prose writers of the Elizabethan age, John Lilly was the most famous. In 1578, the publication of his curious book, Opus, The Anatomy of Wit and its sequel, entitled Opus and His England in 1580, created a sensation. Through these two books, Lilly introduced an inimitable and unique style known as Opuism, marks him as a pioneer. The beauty of the style lies in the perfect use of balanced phrases, intricate alliteration, classical allusion, and ornate epithets. In imitation of Lilly, Robert Greene wrote short novels, Mammalia, 1583, The Mirror of Modesty, and The Card of Fancy. His most popular romance, Pandoso, provided Shakespeare with the plot of the Winter's Tale. Pandosto is marked by better narratives, shorter soliloquies, and lesser euphuism than other books. And next, drama. The Elizabethan era is the period when Elizabeth the First sat on the throne of England. The age saw a boom in the arts in general, but it was the performance arts that perhaps made the most lasting contribution to English and even world culture. The Queen was herself an admirer of plays, performance, and spectacles which were frequently held at her royal residence. The origins at the beginning of the 16th century, many plays were based upon religious themes. These were called morality plays and showed good and bad conduct. Other called miracle plays showed scan from the Bible. Plays date back to the ancient Greeks of the 6th century BCE. There were also masques, a type of mime where masked performed, sang, danced, and recited poetry, were in extravagant costume and stood before painted scenery. Finally, towns across England had long funded public shows, which involved musicians, acrobats, and jesters, and this continued even as theater became popular. There were also masques, a type of mime where masked performed, sang, danced, and recited poetry, were in extravagant costumes and stood before painted scenery. Finally, towns across England had long funded public shows which involved musicians, acrobats, and jesters, and this continued even as theatre became. Theatre opened for business in 1599 CE and was owned by Burbage's sons and some members of the professional acting company known as Clamberlane's Men. The globe theater was made of wood, more or less circular in form, and open to the skies in the center, reaching to a height of 12 meters and measuring 24 meters across. Inside were there tiers of seating, providing a capacity of around 2,000. Maybe enough. Thank you for your attention. Thank you very much.